It's been over 20 years since Sega left the gaming market, and there is still hope that Sega might return to the industry and reclaim its rightful place that was stolen from it more than a generation ago. It's not exactly impossible for this to occur, actually, as at times there have been rumors from Sega that it might return to developing a new console and going back to what it did, which were making games, releasing and publishing content, and giving the fans what they wanted so many times before the untimely demise of the Dreamcast. Sega is developing games, yes, we all know this and it has been done, but not for its own consoles. Sega games and likenesses have been released and developed elsewhere since the Dreamcast's untimely collapse. But what would need to occur in order for Sega to seriously consider returning to developing video games once more? Placement in the market. Some might assume that the gaming market, with all of the various consoles and titles being released and developed on a yearly basis, is a lot. Or that a hypothetical Sega console would have trouble with modern gaming, but this is not exactly true. In the beginning of modern gaming, Sega fought against Nintendo, and its name alone meant something. There is still plenty of space for Sega to return within the gaming market. Though Nintendo and Sony dominate certain regions or niche aspects of the gaming market, Sega could easily reclaim its lost empire. Microsoft's Xbox attempted to steal domains from Sega, but they were only partially successful. Within Japan, the Xbox sells horribly, but that's another video game discussion entirely. But what's important is that Sega could easily reclaim territory and even expand in some situations. It might be more beneficial for Sega to return to the market first in Japan, then see about overseas expansion. But with its name alone, that isn't exactly difficult to do. Reputation. The very name of Sega and all that it stood for can easily still make an impact, and though younger millennial gamers have never really or actually played a Sega console or necessarily remember video games during the golden era of Sega's console dominance, the sheer nostalgia of Sega can easily bring back some gamers. Despite the fact there were corporate decisions to shut down the Sega Saturn before it had time to fight against the original Sony PlayStation and Dreamcast being cancelled just before it started to become popular with gamers, which are now completely different video game discussions, the consensus today is that gamers knew what Sega had to deal with at the time in terms of business tragedy and all of the circumstances that afflicted the company. And there are a bit of pity from gamers, and many would be willing to possibly give them another chance. And gamers who have never played a Sega console, who are curious, would be possibly eager to experience this for the first time. What's new? Even with placement in the market and reputation, if Sega were to return to the gaming industry, a hypothetical console would need to have some new aspects of Sega were to desire more than nostalgia or curious gamers. Some video game commentators have said that if Sega were to release a new console, chances are they might attempt to do something new or slightly different than their competition to set themselves apart. But doing things too differently is what led to the demise of the Saturn and Dreamcast. So there might be something for a chance, but the said change would not be too drastic from Sega in a hypothetical scenario. Sega's gaming selection. Sega has plenty of games to choose from, but one major problem is that a good amount of these franchises, especially important franchises that they once owned, have not necessarily had sequels or remakes since the Dreamcast ceased production in 2001 and shortly thereafter. Since then, some of Sega's franchises have had successes or revivals on different consoles. But there are plenty of franchises that have not been updated in years or even decades now. And to update all that has not been on the market since the 1990s will be a monumental task for Sega. Corporate decisions. One of the reasons why Sega collapsed in the late 1990s were due to bad decisions made by upper management. It would have to be absolutely clear that if Sega were to make a new console, all of the executives would need to be on board with the project, and any problems that might or would occur would need to be dealt with quickly and efficiently to prevent delays and unhappy customers. Competition. It's a different gaming industry than when Sega had left. The competition is still the same, yet the scope of gaming as well as the depth behind games and what it takes to make a game, develop a game, publish a game, make advertisements for a game, and promotion of the game are all different and more complex arguably. Sega might have to do a combination of aggressive marketing as well as pander to loyal gaming customers to combat the competition that will undoubtedly try to attack Sega once more. All of these scenarios will have to be properly addressed immediately and definitively before Sega were to ever return to the video gaming market.